What's good, YouTube? It's your boy! Sumi Little Savage, you already know the fuck going on! Yeah. So, today we are doing the... Oh, shit. Are you okay?
I'm back to my ways, get lost in the waves. I'm telling you my efforts, they're all gonna pay. Remember I love you and that's every...
Today we are reacting to horror stories. I know that I'm not a scaredy cat, so I'm good. So that's why I brought my sister with me here. Anyway, I hope y'all doing good. Quarantine, lockdown stuff.
Sup? It's your girl, man. In my place.
So we are doing animated horror stories. Put in your earphones, put it on loud. Okay, the first one is I think by Horror Shorts Party. That's the channel name, to shout out to you for. Put that on high, boy.
Jeez.
Put this one on high.
So about 3 weeks ago, I started having these strange dreams, often involving little things happening in a different order than usual. It started off pretty normal. My school bus came down my street from an abnormal direction. For some reason, this stuck with me. The dreams were kind of, like an anthology. The second dream followed the next night. The dream started the same, but this time, I got on the bus. People's faces were just blurry, and an odd middle-aged man sat behind me.
But like,
Which is off-seeing is how...
Isn't that how dreams are? Like you can
The
barely
man
see the
whispered
face.
to me, but
Yeah.
I didn't understand what he said. The next night, I had the same dream, but a few minor differences. This time I understood what he said. Remember, don't ask questions. I really didn't understand what he meant by that. The next day I sat in class. I kind of fell asleep during the lecture in my psychology class. The dream continued where it left off. The strange man stood up,
What?
and the bus flipped. Before I woke up, he kept repeating a name. I didn't understand it. When I woke up, my mom was calling me, and I stepped outside of the classroom, so I had to answer. My mother informed me that my estranged father had passed. She sent me a link of the obituary. There was a picture of the strange man. Was it some kind of intuition, or my mind playing tricks on me? After that, the dream stopped. I still haven't figured out what the last thing he said was. I guess I'll never know. This is a
I thought
story
that
about a
was
girl
it. I
in my high
literally
school.
thought it was it. What the?
I go to high school just like any normal person would, but I was having a little trouble with my grades. So I started staying after school to do a little extra work to bring my grades up. But I've noticed in school that there has been this quiet girl that attended tutoring along with 8 other people. The thing is, I would always see her staring at me, never taking her eyes off of me. I really didn't mind it, but it felt really creepy.
Of
This
course
kept
it's
going on for about 2 weeks.
Logic.
At this point, I was feeling very uncomfortable. One day when school ended and tutoring started, I sit as far away as possible from her. We go home at around 6 p.m., and this day I got on the bus like usual. There was only one bus because there aren't so many people, and as usual, I would sit as far away as possible from her.
They
But
take
that
the
day,
same route.
when I got off my bus stop, she got off too. This was weird as she always got off at a different bus stop, but I really didn't pay any attention to it. I thought maybe she changed her bus stop or something, I don't know. I really didn't think about it. It was getting dark, and it was about a 1 mile
she's
walk from
right
my
behind
bus stop to my home.
That's so creepy, bruh.
But I noticed that the girl has been following me for about 2 minutes, and I didn't know why. This, of course, bothered me, but there wasn't really much I could do. I just ignored her, minded my own
Bruh.
business, and I kept walking.
You don't know.
2 minutes later,
Like, hey
I
yo, what's
noticed
your
that she kept
problem?
I started to get the feeling that maybe she was lost or something. It was dark, and then she started talking to herself. She was acting really weird, and I just wanted to ignore it, but she kept whispering to herself. I could hear mumbling. The sound was getting closer and closer, so I picked up the pace. When I picked up the pace, she also did too. She then let out a scream that was so damn loud that it almost made me pee my pants. I started screaming. She went chasing after me.
Jesus, look at that face.
I was getting scared, so I ran around the neighborhood. I didn't want her to go to my house because she would know where I live.
Say it's creepy.
Around the corner, I saw a bush large enough for me to hide in. Then she stopped as she thought that she lost me. When she stopped, she took a deep breath and she ran away. I stayed there for about 5 more minutes just to make sure. I was thinking to myself that this girl was insane and had some mental problems. After this horrifying experience, I didn't go to after-school tutoring again.
Don't tell me she's in your... Bruh.
That ain't safe.
Alright, okay, so that was not bad. This one's called The Night Shift. It's an Easter special, okay? Scary Stories animated. Okay, I think this one's animated by Horrorflix, so shout out to you, my G.
Why ain't these scary, bro?
Hey, bro.
Maybe I'm
they're
resistant,
animated. Maybe
bro.
it's because of that.
Nah, man, I'm just too cool. Feel me? Too resistant.
Okay.
What you trying to say?
Nah, I'm just saying okay.
Alright.
I'm just saying okay.
I don't usually
There's
hold
nothing
back
to it.
when it comes to talking about my job, which was working security at the sub-level of a local hospital. You'd be surprised to know how common break-ins were at that place, which usually ended up being a couple of junkies trying to get high on some of the weird chemicals that were being kept in the labs.
Drug addicts.
It started out as a regular graveyard shift at work, but I'll lead
Graveyard
into a curious
shift.
backstory regarding the doors that led to the morgue. In order to keep the place more sanitized, they had recently installed sliding doors that would automatically open if someone passed in front of them, thus removing the need to touch any handles or doorknobs, and prevent anyone from leaving the doors open by accident.
Come on, man.
Sorry.
They played a major role at that
mouse.
moment,
Right
and had been
there.
on the agenda for the past few months. There wasn't anything really unique about the sliding doors, except for the
It's
fact
just
that
a
they would
sliding
sometimes open and
Just
close
saying.
by themselves.
Oh snap!
That
That
by
means you
itself
can
didn't
sense
seem like such a
presence.
big deal, since this could have been caused by something small such as a moth flying in front of the sensor. Until one night, I realized that it would always happen at the same time.
Jay.
Every night, at exactly
Yay!
3 AM, the doors would open for a few seconds and then close. I was convinced that the doors had been programmed with some kind of time-based trigger, but when I contacted the company that installed the doors, they told me that it wasn't possible since the doors were designed only to open when the sensors were triggered or forced open manually.
Hey,
So
are
it
you
continued without
scared?
any explanation
Huh?
for a long time.
Are you
after.
scared?
Usually there would be at least 2 guards on duty, but that night I ended up working the graveyard shift by myself because
Oh,
the other security guard suddenly became ill and there wasn't enough time to find a temp who could fill in at such short notice. Just to be clear, I had been working as a security guard for a long time, so I was no stranger to danger and I wasn't worried about working alone at night. Besides, the
Oh,
work
wow.
was pretty straightforward. All I had to do is make sure all the doors were locked and secured and keep a close eye on the monitors. There were only 2 cameras, one overlooking the control room
Literally
and another
only
one at
2,
the other
bruh.
end of the corridor
That sucks.
overlooking the entrance to the morgue.
Don't they do that thing
As the
when they
clock
sense the
approached
heat
3
waves?
AM,
Huh?
I
Like
did
the
what
heat
all the
waves?
guards on duty would do.
Like when
Sit
you
back
see
and
heat
enjoy
waves?
the show.
Why are you talking so soft? You're not
Although the
talking
novelty
loud.
of seeing this
Oh, yeah.
phenomenon had long worn off,
Nah,
it was still
forget it, it's
something I
not
would
going now.
anticipate and would often give me the chills, seeing how it was the entrance to the morgue and that you could sense a sudden rush of cold air every time the doors would open, even from the other end of the corridor. I watched patiently
I
as the
hate
doors
jump
opened,
scares, bruh.
followed by the howling rush of cold air.
Well, why are
that
you
emerged from
looking
under
so
the
far
door.
away?
I'm not looking far away, stop.
Ah,
Come on.
right. That wind though.
That wind, bruh.
It was when I glanced away from the door and looked to the monitors that I noticed something strange. The doors remained open. At
For
first
longer
I thought it
than-
might be a glitch with the monitor, and I was simply looking at a frozen frame. But then I saw the lights flicker.
And then you know, oh shit.
Get out, bruh.
I waited for a few minutes, but it soon became clear that I would have to head on down to the end of the corridor, since it was strictly prohibited for the doors to the morgue to remain open. As I stepped out into the corridor, I acknowledged a significant drop in temperature, which I knew was going to get considerably worse as I approached the morgue. I gradually made my way down the corridor and turned the corner that ultimately led me to the sliding doors. I had hoped that the doors might have closed by the time I got there, but just as I had seen on the monitor, the doors were in fact still open and the camera was
what's going on? Well, why is it
functioning normally. I tried waving my hands in front of the sensor, but to no avail. The doors would not budge.
I slept at 5 o'clock.
That's none of my problem.
I reluctantly contemplated my next option, which was to test the sensors from the other side, requiring me to enter the morgue. But I decided to take a look around first to see if I could observe anything out of the ordinary. Only when I turned my back to observe the corridor did the doors finally close, which was quickly accompanied by a cold chill in the air. I could feel an overwhelming sense of someone standing right behind me as the hairs on the back of my neck began to spike.
Chills.
So the first thing you do is run. Just run, my dude.
But it turned out to be more of the same eerie silence as before. Since the doors had already closed without having to actually enter the morgue, I considered myself fortunate and hurried back to the control room to make sure nothing else was out of place. I closed the door and locked it from the inside, and for a moment I was expecting it to be business as usual as I sat back down in front of the monitors. But after taking a quick sip of my coffee, I realized the coffee was stone cold. Not just lukewarm as you would expect, but genuinely chilled. I hadn't been away from the desk for that long, so it didn't make much sense at all. But then I remembered that I had felt that same chill before at the other end of that corridor. Out of curiosity, I decided to rewind the security footage back to when I approached the doors to see if I could spot anything out of the ordinary, which is when I witnessed something that I simply couldn't explain. There was a girl standing in front of the doors behind me. I couldn't really make out her face due to her long black hair. That was a stark contrast to the white gown she was wearing.
Adam.
She just stood there staring right at me and then walked
God
towards
damn!
me. To this day, I can't explain it, because I had just been there and I hadn't seen anyone.
You want me to disown
It was
you?
when I checked the other camera overlooking the entrance to the control room that really sent a chill down my spine and still gives me nightmares to this day.
Oh shit!
You don't scream! When you scream, instantly I'm gonna scream. You ass! You just showed them that I am a cat!
Yeah!
It's not funny.
Despite being trapped from the inside as moments before.
Yeah, you wonder why. If you shut up and let me do the thing, I won't get
I
scared.
guess now would be the time to ask yourself, do you believe in ghosts?
Never really thought of it, really. If I had to think about it, I'd say no. I don't.
This one's called The Secret of Room Number 20. Let's see what it has, okay? Let's see what it has.
It was late in the evening and I was driving on the highway. I was coming back home from my friend's party. I was so tired at that time, so I decided to check in at a hotel near the village. The hotel was not too big, seemed normal, but was kind of creepy. After finishing check-in, I got my key and the room number. My room number was 23.
23. Hey, it reminds me of the series.
As I was passing by the other doors, I heard a kid's giggling voice from the room number 20, which was located just 2 doors away from my room. I stopped walking. Then I noticed that the door on this room looked different from the others. The door looked very old and it had a big keyhole. And it was big enough to peek inside the room. I was actually curious about the inside, so I looked idiot! And there was a girl who was sitting on the bed with her face down to the floor. I couldn't see her face clearly because her hair was all covered. She was wearing a white dress like the 1990s style, and it looked dirty. I thought it was weird, but soon I just disregarded it. So I headed to my room, locked the door, and just passed out. The next morning, I was walking the hallway again. I didn't know why, but I instantly had this feeling that I wanted to look through that keyhole again in room 20. So I stopped in front of the door and looked through the hole.
Idiot.
But this time, I couldn't hear any sound and see the girl, though. All I could see was a whole red color. I thought maybe she saw me yesterday, that I was looking through the hole. So she probably covered up the hole with a red cloth or something.
Oh, blood.
I thought that was childish.
Possibility.
So I smiled, stepped back, and headed to the counter. Before leaving, I asked the lady at the counter, "Hey, what's going on in that room 20? Why does the door look different, and why that girl stays alone?" She stared at me for a while, and then began to talk. "Oh, you mean the room number 20.
What the flip?
There used to be a family who checked in that room when this hotel wasn't renovated before. The couple had a daughter and stayed in here for their vacation. But then, they killed their daughter in that room. And when the cops arrived, the couple killed themselves too. But the weirdest part about it was, after that, lots of our guests told the staff that they saw the same girl who was wandering the hallways. And they all said that the girl's eyes were too red, as just like she was shedding tears of blood. What she told me shocked me. My heart was pounding and I couldn't even speak anything. Then, what was that red thing? Was she looking at me through the door, just like I was watching her?
Oh, madness.
Nothing goes through you, bruh.
What are you trying
Nothing
to
goes
do?
through you, bruh. You're just really good.
Leave a like, subscribe, and if you want more content, leave in the comment section, okay? Since she says she's not scared of it, next time we do this, it's not going to be animated version, it's going to be realistic. So, peace out. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay blessed.
You never could.